Hello there, and greetings everybody. Welcome here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show. This is a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're here on Wednesday night with my Wednesday night favorites, and I've chosen to do a kind of a different video. It's a top 5. I like doing these little top 5 things because there's lots of little topics you can do. So I've chosen to do one today. This is my 5. This is basically, I'm going to title this 5 bands that have made a comeback for me. Well, really, what does that mean? Well, it's not necessarily a comeback in that they were terrible and then I grew to like them. It's nothing like that. It's kind of best way to put this is that these are all bands I listened to fairly regularly, had albums of theirs, talked about them with my friends and stuff like that when I was a teenager in my in the early 80s. They were bands I was into, but I just kind of drifted away from them. Usually what I think what happened with most of them is that I had an album or two of theirs that I liked and I just never pursued beyond that. That's basically what happened. But these are bands that since I started this channel a couple of years ago, like 2.5 years ago now, I think, these are all bands that have made comebacks in a strong way, in the way that I've been buying their albums and listening to their stuff a lot. So I've chosen 5 of them. To be honest with you, I could have easily chose 10. There's about 10 like that, but I took the 5 that I think have been the most impactful as far as comebacks, as far as this video will go. So I want to make it clear these are not bands that I disliked or didn't like. There was never any of that. I liked them right away. I just drifted away from them basically. Some of them I was right into their stuff right up to the album that I stopped listening to, and then I just kind of never got anything else. That's pretty much the best way to sum it up. So I put them in a kind of an order. Basically, I decided to put them in the order of the strongest comeback, I guess might be the best way to put it. So some of them have had more of a comeback than others, but they've all had great comebacks. So we're going to start with the number 5 band for this, which is these guys, the Beatles. I chose this album because this is, to me, their best album. I didn't do that with all other groups, but this one I did. I actually was debating between these and a couple of other bands. But when I think about the other band, the one band that I'm thinking of, I still always listen to them. Even when I really wasn't listening to them a lot, I still continued to listen to them. Whereas this band, I kind of drifted away from in, I would say in the early 80s, and I kind of didn't really listen to them much until about 4 or 5 years ago. I started listening to cover bands doing their stuff that I liked quite a bit, videos and stuff. And then once I started this channel, I started getting into these guys again. So for me, the Beatles had to be one of these bands. They got so many good stuff, and up until this channel started, I had only the Blue album. That was it, a collection of songs. And the Blue album is okay. It kind of highlights maybe some of their more notable songs from that era, from that time period. But you don't get any of the real kind of deep cuts. So I've been purchasing their albums. I got lucky one day. I was somewhere and somebody had 2 or 3 of them that were in really good shape, and I got them all for like a fin, or all 3 of them, or whatever it was. And that got me going. And this one I spent a little bit more to get this one because I like this one. I really like the art on this one quite a bit. Art on the cover. But the album itself has a lot of really strong songs on it as well. For me, for my Beatle favorites. And my particular favorite on this album is the last track, which is Tomorrow Never Knows. There's something kind of progressive about that song, and just really nobody had done anything like that really before, and just such a great song. They got a whole horde of stuff that not only they kind of had 2 great eras. You know, very few bands are lucky to get one great era. Well, they had their kind of pop era, which was big with the women, I guess. And then they had their kind of psychedelic era. And there seems to be distinctive fans for both. Some fans really only like that pop stuff and can't stand this stuff. Other artists can't stand that pop stuff. It's just, they just can't stand it, but they love this stuff. Well, for me, I like both eras for different reasons. The pop stuff I enjoy because it's really catchy. The vocal harmonies are great. This stuff is just very different for that time period too. So the Beatles for me come in number 5 of those great comeback bands for me. So the number 4 band, this was a little bit more difficult as we go along because I really thought about which of these 2 bands I should put next, and I decided on this one just because, well, actually I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to do this one first instead. So this is a band that for 35 plus years had my favorite album, and then it kind of lost its steam and was replaced in the last 3 years by another album. But the band overall, I just stopped listening to them. I don't know what happened. I had 4 albums in a row that I really liked by them, and then I just, after that 4th album, I just didn't listen to them anymore. And I can't explain why that happened. I didn't dislike them. Nothing had changed. I didn't like what had come out. I just never went to it. I don't know why. But I've been getting back into them in a big way. We're talking about Triumph. I chose this album because I think many people feel this might be their best album. But, they just have such good stuff. Like, they're just like one great album after another. They got a little bit more commercial as they went along, and maybe that's what drove me away from them. I think that probably had something to do with it, but it also came at that era too where just about every band I listened to did that. They went from being what I really loved to this poppy kind of commercial sounding music. And if it had just happened with half a dozen bands and I still had bands that I liked that were still doing the stuff I liked, I probably would have stayed with listening to music a lot longer. I wouldn't have gone off a track and on to something completely different. But it happened with almost all the bands I loved. So Triumph, I don't know that they did it any more or less than other bands, but I just got away from them. So this album, and then Progressions of Power, kind of that was it. And then now I've got the one that came right after that, which is currently waiting its turn in my playlist. And I don't think it's any different than these 2. I could have easily continued along with them, but I didn't. But they're a great band. They're a power trio, one of Canada's best power trios. Rick Emmett's voice is probably the best vocalist in Canada, I think. I think he is. That's my personal opinion, but that's just me. And Gilmour has got a great voice too, and Gilmour actually sings more of the songs that I actually really like by Triumph. I kind of liken these guys, and the music's not the same at all, but I kind of liken them to Supertramp in a way. They have those 2 fantastic vocalists. One's really high end, the other one more medium range end. But I like them both as both a lot. And I've actually started out liking the higher vocalist better, and then kind of went down to the guy who was more mainstream, more normal vocal range. And that's the same thing with Supertramp's the same thing. But I love this particular album is really good. I always mix this one up with Progressions of Power because a lot of the stuff is pretty similar on both of them. This one, though, this particular album, most people know the Magic Power. That was maybe their biggest hit, and that may be the song that kind of turned me off. But also this had Fight the Good Fight and Ordinary Man, which I think are 2 of their best tracks. Progressions of Power, a little bit different, but I always, for some reason, always get Fight the Good Fight. I keep thinking it's on Progressions of Power, but it isn't. So 2 really good albums in a row. My favorite album, of course, by them is Just the Game. Easily my favorite Triumph album. And maybe it's my second favorite album of all time. And this band just is prolific great at guitar. The drums are good, clear sounding, fantastic group. So Triumph making a huge comeback for me. Okay, so the number 4 or the number 3 group, I just switched. They were number 4, and I decided, I've been thinking about how much I've been listening to them lately and how much impact they have, and how some of the stuff that I had listened to in the past, which was like their bigger songs and stuff like that I really liked, and then I started listening to these albums and realized, wow, there's so much more stuff here. And this album here, Thin Lizzy's Thunder and Lightning, I got this first because of the songs Thunder and Lightning and Cold Sweat, which I was familiar with. And then I started realizing, wow, there's so much good stuff. And I thought this was going to be like a heavy metal album, but there are some heavy metal tracks on here, but there's just as many of that hard rock stuff that they're known for on here too. The Sun Goes Down, clearly a fantastic track. Please, Please Don't Go, and someday she is going to hit back. These are all great tracks. Cold Sweat, of course, is the killer on this. And this album began the resurgence for this group with me. I've now got a couple more of their albums, and so I'm really quite enjoying getting into them, and wonder why I took so long to get that next album. I don't know. But anyways, great comeback by a fantastic band, one of the best vocalists in the heavy metal thunder. He has such a distinct voice. It's so different than a lot of heavy metal singers who try to do that really high end pitch, and his is like the low end pitch basically. And such good instrumentation by the guys on these bands as well. Anyways, I do enjoy this album. I do enjoy this group, and they're making a huge comeback, Thin Lizzy. Okay, now we're getting to the top 2. Number 2. Oh, this was a real tough choice. I didn't know which one of these 2 to put first. If you come here if I'd done this 2 or 3 months ago, this band definitely would have been number 2, or would have been number 1. But the other group's been like dominating the last 3 months and really come on. I don't know, Blue Oyster Cult. I picked this album because it's probably the one that everybody will most know, because it has Don't Fear the Reaper, and that's the song that everybody knows, right? Overplayed. I still love it, but it's overplayed too much. This particular album is really good. Is it their best? No, I think there's several albums better than this one, but it's really good. And this band is so different on all their albums, and only album I had for them for decades was Fire of Unknown Origin, which I really liked. I love that album. I played it a lot, and you would think the next logical thing would be to get the next one, right? But I just didn't go there. I kind of let them slide. I let it drift away. I didn't follow them anymore. And to the point where I just didn't listen to them hardly at all. But now, this is a band that I go to quite a bit. They've been slumping a bit lately because I haven't been really into them too much, but before that, they were a huge comeback band for me, and probably would have been the number 1 for sure if I hadn't slipped a slight. And this disc I just noticed has a crack in it. Must have been part of when I was moving. I dropped one of them and smashed a bunch of stuff, and this must have got a slight damage to it. Anyways, Blue Oyster Cult coming in number 2 for the comeback band for me. Number 1, skidded in here by a hair, but they've been on such a great roll lately. I had to include them here on the list for sure. And I've gotten like a half dozen of their albums over the last couple of months. Most of them I'm familiar with to some point, like songs on every one of them for sure. But some of them I'm really getting into in a big way. And I don't know where I put it, but anyways, we're talking about Judas Priest. I just chose British Steel because it's the most well-known of their albums. Is it their best? I don't think so. I think it's in the top half of the albums, but I don't think it's in the top 5 or anything. But it's still a great album with lots of really well-known great stuff on here. Grinder, Metal Gods is on here, and of course Living After Midnight, which everybody knows. I personally really like that track a lot. I know that Priest fans don't really care for it, or You Got Another Thing Coming, but overall, this is a great album. And the band has so many good albums now. Like those first 8, 9 albums, fantastic, just so good. I even like Rock-a-Roller. Rock-a-Roller, I think that's what it's called. I like it. It's different than anything else they did, but I still like it quite a bit. The band itself has just really came alive in the last 3 years for me since I started this channel. I had always, when I was growing up, I had Screaming for Vengeance, of course, and then we got Defenders of the Faith, and I was listening to those albums a lot, and then I had a Greatest Hits that I listened to a lot. But I never really pursued anything after Defenders of the Faith. That was it. They were done. Some bands I did continue with, but they were just not one of them, and I went for long periods where I didn't listen to them in 3 or 4 years at a time, and then I'd get into them a little bit and then go back to the way it was. But now that I'm doing this, I'm listening to these guys a lot. Like I'm going to visit my daughter today. I'm taking, I usually take a couple albums to listen to in the car, and I've taken, one of them is a Judas Priest album. And so, because I love that on the road, they're great for driving. They're great driving music. So there you have it, number 1. So the 5 bands that made huge comebacks for me over the last couple of years: Judas Priest, Blue Oyster Cult, BOC, Thin Lizzy, Phil Lynott, Triumph, and last but not least, the Beatles. And they could have put a few others in there. I may do a second one of these because there's at least 5 more I can think of that should be talked about. So if you like this video, please hit the like. Put any comments about the 5 bands, or 5 bands that you've had this same kind of experience with. Maybe there's a band that you really liked when you were young, and then whatever reason you kind of got sidetracked and really wasn't listening to them much, and then you rediscovered them at some point and you said, wow, what have I been missing all these years, and then you got back into them and made a huge comeback for you. So put any comments you have about that in the comment section below. Please hit the like button so I know if you like the video. Maybe I'll do a second part, I'm not sure. And please hit the subscription and hit the notification bell if you want to know about when the content's coming out. Anyways, I want to wish you all a good day, a good Wednesday night, and have a good rest of your week. And we will see you next Wednesday with another Wednesday night favorites. Take care. Bye.